Welcome to the Practitioner's Heart, offering practical Buddhist wisdom for therapists and healthcare workers. If you are keen to deepen your practice beyond the theoretical understanding of Buddhism, if you are finding it hard to calm your little active mind after therapy work, I welcome you to join me to dive a little deeper. Each episode, I'll be sharing some common issues that therapists may face when integrating and practicing awareness, compassion within themselves and also supporting clients. I'll be sprinkling some pearls of wisdom that I've learned from my master and teachers that will be helpful as internal resources. I'll also be interviewing other therapists who are on this spiritual path together to share their experiences of how they practice wisdom and compassion in their daily lives. I want to let you know that you're not alone. You are part of a bigger community who aspire for greater soul alignment, growth, and awakening. That we can strike a balance of juggling our busy modern life as therapists with a clear mind and an open heart. I hope to inspire more practitioners to explore deeper spiritual meaning and purpose on our path to enlightenment. I'm your host, Po Gan, a psychologist, a Buddhist practitioner, a parent of 2 children, a fellow human being with a busy mind, but with a great inspired vision for collective awakening. Let's begin. Welcome back to the part 2 of my conversation with Dr. Hayley D. Quinn. If you haven't listened to part 1 yet, I'll encourage you to go back and listen to it. It lays a beautiful foundation for what we are exploring today. In this second half, we shift from the personal to the systemic and relational. We talk about the patterns of self-neglect we often see in therapists, coaches, and helping professionals, many of which are partly shaped by our training, our socialization and conditioning, and the work's emotional demands on us as therapists. Hayley offers compassionate insights into burnout, shame, and the invisible cost of always being the strong one. And she shares thoughtful, practical strategies for designing work around your energy, your neurotype, and your real emotional capacity rather than the expectations of the systems around you. So I hope that you find this podcast episode validating, grounding, and full of wisdom. If you're someone who gives a lot of yourself to others as therapists and healthcare professionals and would like to cultivate a more compassionate relationship with yourself, I hope you get something out of this episode. And most importantly, don't forget to check out Hayley's new book. See the show notes for her website as well. Let's step into part 2. Now that you have worked with so many people across, I guess, with your clients, and then eventually more with therapists, and then now more with business women, what patterns you have observed? What sort of patterns of self-neglect, I guess, that contribute to burnout, especially for therapists and helping professionals, that might be different from the general population?
Look, I think in terms of helping professionals, obviously your audience is made up mainly of people in caring professions. It very much is a role that asks you to put the other first. Then when you think about, I have mainly across my career worked with women or people assigned female at birth. And as women, we are socialized from a very young age as well to put other people's needs first. So if you've had that kind of socialization from a very young age, and then you go into a profession that says it's not about you, it's about your client, you're reinforcing some of those beliefs and that narrative that we've lived under. I also think within that profession, there is a system that doesn't support individual well-being, which is really tricky. I'm hoping that that is changing over time. There's new competency around self-care. My fear when that came out was that it becomes one more thing that practitioners will feel guilty about, or will feel fearful that actually, if I'm not taking care of myself, I am now incompetent because I'm not meeting that competency.
Yeah.
I have some fears around that for the profession.
So let's unpack that a little bit more. What would you have liked the therapist to see differently if they started to feel like, if I'm not looking after myself, I'm failing as a therapist, or like I'm not meeting the competencies?
Yeah, I think it's a really tricky one. I think when that was rolled out, it would have been really lovely to see it rolled out with support, not just here's a competency, go look after yourself. I don't know that's that helpful. Would be really nice to have seen that rolled out with some kind of support. But we can't always control what's happening in the bigger picture, right? So we need to come back to what can I control within myself?
Yeah.
And I think the first thing that I would say is if people are struggling, is to acknowledge that this is not a failure. You're working in a really challenging profession. The work that you do as health professionals is hard. And it's unlike a lot of other jobs. Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it really is unlike a lot of other jobs. My husband and I have a building company, and we talk a lot about the business of building houses. We connect with our clients in a very different way. We sometimes socialize with our building clients. And I've had conversations with him where we've kind of compared when I used to be a psychologist and what it's like having a different type of job that doesn't have the regulations. And I'm not saying these regulations aren't important. I think it's important that we keep confidentiality with client work. But what we also need to acknowledge is a lot of other people go home from work and they talk to their partner about their job, or they discuss something that was challenging at work. They don't just hold it all to themselves. And yes, we can have supervision and you can go and see a supervisor, but that tends to be once a month, maybe fortnightly if you're navigating something that's tricky. A lot of people who work go home and talk about their work briefly at the end of every day. Might get some support around somebody that was challenging at work, or just being able to have the conversations and also have their partner understand what it is they do or what it is that they're talking about with their work. That doesn't get to happen in professions like psychology. A lot of people, or most people, are not going to work listening to trauma stories one after the other throughout the day and then throughout the week. And I think when we're in it, we can lose sight a little bit that that's actually the nature of the work and those are some of the things that are challenging. So then when things feel difficult, we've minimized actually how difficult the work is. So I really would say if you're struggling in this, it's not your fault. It is actually a really hard profession. Some client work obviously is more complex than others, so depending what type of work you're doing. But I think the other thing is there's so much shame that can show up around feeling like you're not coping. I know for me, when I was registered and I was significantly burning out, I felt so much shame. I felt so inadequate. Nobody was talking about burnout back then. It felt really lonely. It felt really distressing. And my hope is, and I know there are some more people starting to talk about this, I'm certainly talking about it. When people aren't discussing these kind of topics frequently, it can mean that lots of people are experiencing something that everyone thinks nobody is. I think if you are struggling, reaching out to somebody that you trust, whether that's a colleague, whether that's a supervisor, whether that is somebody like me who kind of deals in the burnout prevention space, can be really a good first step. Or maybe you've got a trusted GP or somebody, because I do think there's a lot of fear and shame that shows up around this, which makes it then harder to move through it.
For people to seek support and feel differently again.
Yeah. And if you can bring a compassionate response to yourself, which I know can be really hard for a lot of people, in understanding that actually you're suffering right now, and being critical of yourself and shame and feeling shame around that isn't going to help you get out of that. If we can bring compassion and understanding and really look at what is it I'm doing and how does it make sense that perhaps I'm feeling like this, because that in itself can start to move you through that de-shaming process.
I guess there are a lot more practitioners starting to pay attention to well-being and how prevalent burnout is among helping professionals. It's definitely, the more we talk about it, the more people will feel that they are not alone, and there are things that we can put in place to support and to prevent that from happening and to recover from burnout as well.
Absolutely. And understanding who you are and how you best work. And again, I recognize my privilege in this because I have been able to set my work life up in a way that I want to, and I know everybody can't just do that. But if we can understand who we are and how our brains work, and if you are neurodivergent, that adds at a whole other level of things, we can start to design our businesses or the way we work in a way that actually works for us, not against us. And that can be so important in burnout prevention.
It's almost like a work design, like, work by design for our.
Absolutely.
So I was just thinking about compassion and self-compassion or compassion-focused therapy. There are sometimes some practitioners will feel like theoretically they understand, but then when it comes to implementation or to really embody that compassion and to be really kind to themselves or to others, I guess my question is, would there be times where having professionals, they understand compassion on a word level but not actually practicing? And how could they get over that hurdle?
And, when we think about compassion, it really is important to think about the three flows of compassion. As helping professionals, most people have likely chosen this profession because they are compassionate people. So the flow of compassion outward to other people likely isn't a problem at all. The self-compassion piece can be something that people struggle with a lot, but also the receiving compassion from other people. So that flow to yourself from someone else can be really tricky as well. And I think this is the thing that I loved about compassion focused therapy compared to some of the other trainings I'd done as a psychologist, were that it's not an intellectual pursuit. It really does encourage you to embody the practices so that you can work more effectively with your clients. But also the beautiful kind of side effect of that is you build this compassionate relationship with yourself. So I thought that was a total bonus. One of my favorite things about CFT.
Because there's a lot of body work and there's a lot of imagery and like practices that helps you to actually embody them rather than inner thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. So, some of the training was based on method acting. So if you don't feel like you're particularly compassionate to yourself, I'm not saying necessarily not a compassionate person, but compassionate to yourself, you can act as if you are, as if, like method actors were. You can kind of adopt this persona and pretend to treat yourself in a compassionate way and see how that feels. And the more we practice that, well, we just start to do that, don't we? And then, the guided meditations and using our imagination for things like compassionate other imagery can be really, really helpful in that process. There's a really great book called CFT from the Inside Out,
Okay.
which can be good for practitioners if they are interested in compassion focused therapy. And that really does take you through all the different practices. And again, understanding, which I think is important for lots of different types of therapy, to be honest, is if we can experience it, we can have a sense of some of the things that might show up. Now, obviously, not everything you experience is going to be what your clients experience, but we can have that experience of what might show up. So we're more aware of that when we are using it with clients.
It's just really highlighting that practice, practice, practice. And
Yeah. And then when you've finished practicing, practice some more. I've been learning CFT since 2013. I worked with that in my clinical practice. That was my main lens that I use for life. Like Paul Gilbert will say, it's the science of being human. And I think he's spot on. It really helps us understand what it means to be humans with tricky minds. So I've been doing that 13 years and I still am in practice of this. This isn't something I think we just kind of set and forget. It really is checking in and I have days, I used to have a very, very brutal self-critic. I'm glad to say now that is absolutely not my default. That doesn't mean my self-critic doesn't show up, but now I'm able to notice it and recognize that actually that's a threat system activation. So I can get curious about, okay, so what has activated my threat system and what do I need to help me soothe? Because if I can soothe and activate my green circle, I can access wisdom and move forward in a way that's going to be helpful, not harmful for me.
Yeah. It's like the more you practice, the more you can be aware of that threat system showing up or that inner critic being active more quickly.
Yeah.
Was there a particular practice that is the most significant for you in terms of how you show up for yourself?
I think for me, soothing rhythm breathing, learning how to really regulate my nervous system, I found soothing rhythm breathing really helpful and really simple. It's like breathe in and out with equal breaths. Slow down your breath and breathe in and out with equal breaths. It's a very simple practice. Not to say it's an easy practice, because when I first started doing that, I did not want to be slowing down and being in connection with myself. So that took practice and time. And then also the compassionate imagery. But one of the things that I found helpful, and I made this a suggestion in the book, there's 8 meditations in the book. You can use a QR code and I will guide you through that meditation. But I've also included all of the scripts. And I put in the book that you might like to record yourself
Yes.
speaking, like reading it, so that you can play it back to yourself. And the reason I did that was I actually did that a few times for myself early on because it helped me listen to a compassionate voice that was actually mine rather than listening to other people's compassionate voice, which was also helpful. But it was this thing of like, oh, actually, I could hear myself being compassionate to myself. And that was really helpful for me. So I put that in the book because I was like, well, if it was helpful for me, maybe it'll be helpful for somebody else. But then there's also the option that you can just use the QR code and I'll guide you in the meditations as well.
I thought that was brilliant to be able to have both options. And I think hearing ourselves, it's like internalizing that external voice of like how kindly you speak to yourself. And then it becomes an internal voice inside, isn't it?
Yeah, because the script gives you the words that you perhaps wouldn't use for yourself.
Yeah. Really, some of the reframing from like the threat base and to the compassion base, and then the reasoning behind as well. There's some of the examples that you gave that was really good too. There are so many beautiful chapters about how it encapsulates your journey, and also how like people reading can actually go through that process with your support. with your boys and then going through their own journey as well. I like the later part where you talk about how to do it differently and find that new way of being. I didn't realize that self actually has that acronym.
Yeah.
Start where you are, explore the possibilities, learn to do it differently, and find your new way of being. Is it
Yeah.
something that you come up with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's my autistic brain was like, oh, how can we make this into a little acronym? But what I wanted, I really did want it to be a bit of a journey for
Mm,
people and an experience like that, because it's one thing understanding something,
mm,
but then we need to kind of think, okay, well, what next then? I didn't want to kind of leave people with, well, here's some information. This is why I think things are happening, but now you're on your own. I really wanted to kind of help guide people through the different kind of phases. And when I got to the end of it, I was like, it's not going to be helpful for everybody. Nothing ever is. But I think it will be helpful for many people. And I really do believe that if you start reading the book and you engage with the book, there's lots of reflective questions in there. And like I said, the meditations, and you get to the end of the book, I truly believe something will have changed for you.
mm. And that's the thing about when you actually practice and actually integrate and reflect, and something would have changed. Yeah. Um, I guess you just finished your book launch, and there's a lot of things happening right now and coming back. And what did you learn about yourself? And then also, like, what does rest look like for you now that you have done the work and you're still really busy? Like, you're actively doing something that are meaningful for you and values aligned for you. So, how do you deal with the demands at the same time still providing a lot of rest for yourself?
Yeah.
Right.
So I will start with saying everybody looks at me and says, "Oh my gosh, you're really busy."
Uh-huh.
And I always say I'm actually not, and
Uh-huh.
that's very intentional. So what's important to understand for me is I do a lot of different things,
Yeah.
but I don't do lots of each of them.
Okay.
Also, I have a brain that processes very fast.
Mhm.
And when I need to get something done, I can get things done really quite quickly.
Yeah.
So, whilst it looks like I'm really busy, I wouldn't want people thinking that I'm doing like hours and hours and hours of work every day, because I'm not. And that's because I can work in a way where I don't have to.
Mm.
Yeah. So, I'm very intentional about not filling my days a lot because I know I'll get too tired.
Mm.
I make time in my diary for, like, I've just started going to the gym. I'm in my midlife, realizing the importance of strength-based training and all those sort of things. So I've carved out time to make sure I'm going to the gym. Now I know that because I'm doing that, that uses spoons for me and I get tired. So on those days, I don't factor in too much. I've been traveling. I think I talk about this in the book. I do what I call front loading self-care. Like if I know that I've got a busier than normal period, I will make sure that I'm getting plenty of rest, that I'm not booking a lot of things in my calendar. The same for when I get back as well. So this week I'm back from Melbourne.
Mm.
I've really only got a few things in my diary that I absolutely have to attend to. And other things will either get moved or I just wouldn't put them in for that time. But that again is, I'm forever reviewing that. I was just having a conversation with my husband actually this morning. So driving back from the gym, and I'm constantly reviewing how much is enough and how much is too much for me. Because I also know I have a brain that's very curious. I like learning, I like doing things. I had a reminder of a dear friend that I've known for many, many years who came to my Brisbane book launch. I'm not surprised you've done this. She knew me when my son was very young. I was a single mum. And she said, "You're always achieving something and moving on to the next thing." I'm more mindful now that I can't just achieve, quickly move on. I very much value celebrating what we've done. I talk about that in the book as well.
Yes, yes, I
Taking
know.
time to slow down and honor what we have done, and that I don't have to keep jumping to the next shiny thing. But that can be hard. I've got ADHD. I love shiny things.
Yes, I was going to say, how do you do it? Holding yourself from jumping to the next thing.
Because I check in with myself, and
No.
I'll say to myself, oh, look, shiny thing. Okay, if I'm going to do that thing, what is motivating that?
Mm,
And sometimes in this world of social media and everything else, it can be, oh, well, other people are doing that. Maybe I should be doing that.
mm,
And if I hear myself say that, I'm like, nah, that
yeah,
is not for me.
yeah.
I'm not here to prove myself to anybody. I'm not here to prove anything to myself.
Mm,
I'm 56 years old now. I think I'm like, I've done some good stuff. I want to continue to do things, but they need to be values aligned. They need to be sustainable. And I cannot lose sight of myself in it. I've
mm,
done that before and it was to my detriment. So it's coming back to me and why do I want to do this? What will this mean? Or if I do want to do this extra thing, is there something I can put down for the moment? Like when I wanted to write the book,
mhm,
I was going to run my group online coaching program in March or April. And I started writing the book in March. And I made the decision, well, if I'm going to start the book, I'm not going to be running the group coaching program
yeah,
because I want to focus on the book.
yeah, yeah,
And if I'm doing the group coaching, I want to be able to focus on them
yeah, yeah.
and not be distracted. Like I don't want to be in that position.
It sounds like you have intentionally created more space around you that allows you to really focus and you master the skills of letting go and not attached to like, I need to do a lot. And there is also this piece of you're doing all of these things not to prove your self-worth, but like you already have that self-worth really firmed and really anchored, which is a beautiful way of leading your life from
Mm.
that anchored space, isn't it?
Oh, it feels so much better. And that's not to say that I don't have days where I feel crap. And maybe think I will take on more things or realize that there's too many things in my diary, but I do try and then look at it and remedy it. I'm certainly not perfect at this and I don't strive to be either. And that's where compassion comes in because when I don't get it right the way I want it to go, or I do overdo it and I exhaust myself, which
Yeah,
thankfully isn't often, I'll be compassionate about that.
yeah,
There's been certain things with the book, like I have to, if I want the book to get into people's hands, I
yeah,
have to market the book, I have to be promoting it, I have to do things around that. And it's been a lot. I've run 3 book events. I've been on different podcasts. I've been doing different marketing things. But I keep coming back to, okay, how am I feeling? In the next week or so, I'm going to be taking some time off because I'm just like, okay, just going to take some time off and take a breather and then come back to it.
mm,
And again, I recognize my privilege. I can do that. Not everybody can do that, but we can all check in with ourselves. Assuming we have no issues with breathing, we can take some soothing breaths during the day. We can make sure we've got a glass of water so we're not dehydrating during a client session, those kind of things. So I think that we can all do small things even if we can't do the bigger things.
And it sounds like from what you're sharing so far, Hayley, you do provide service to other people and it's still really close to your heart and your values, but you're no longer throwing yourself under the bus, but you are leading and taking her next to you, with you all the time, and checking in like a good partner, working like you're benefiting other people, but at the same time, you're holding yourself really dearly, intentionally, with care and compassion. That's really
Absolutely.
nice. Yeah.
One of my values is service to others, but not to the detriment of myself. Like I'm not going to cram in people in the day if I haven't got space, or on a day that I've reserved for doing something else. Like, I think the boundaries that we hold for ourselves, both externally and the internal boundaries, are really important as well.
It's really beautiful. I'm mindful of the time, so I probably will have to wrap up now. And I usually ask the guests this question: if there is one seed that you can plant in the listener's mind to help them to go from self-neglect or focusing on being compassionate to other people, but now, wanting to practice self-compassion, what would that be? What would be the first gentle step in order for them to do that now or today?
Given that the relationship with yourself is the longest relationship you will ever have in your entire life, what do you want that relationship to look like? And if you want it to be different to how it is, how do you want it to be different? I always say to people, please never lose sight of how much you matter. And then come back and check in with yourself. Asking yourself, what is it that I need? And is there a way that I can offer that to myself?
That's really beautiful. I feel myself really soften and there's this warmth in my heart as you're talking about that. It's just like, yes. It is really holding our inner child, that inner self, that younger version of ourselves really dearly. And I feel like it's really empowering, even though compassion sounds soft and gentle. But when you're embodying that, it actually, to some extent, makes you more brave and more courageous, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think that's a real misconception, that compassion is kind of soft and fluffy and it's just about being nice and kind. At the heart of compassion is courage. It's about courage and strength and wisdom. And it can be absolutely life-changing. And I say that because it has been absolutely life-changing for me. I'll be forever grateful to Professor Paul Gilbert for the work that he's done throughout his lifetime, and that I've had the privilege of being able to learn about that as well, because it's just been made such a difference.
I love it. Cool. Thank you so much for your time and your presence and your wisdom today. So if listeners would like to know more about your work, where can they find you?
Either at my website, drhayleydquinn.com, or I'm on social media, Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn under Dr. Hayley D. Quinn as well. And then also my podcast, Welcome to Self.
I'll have to check that out too. And thank you so much. I will put that in the show notes. And thank you very much for being here with me. And I wish you all the best with your book launch.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
See you.
I hope this episode offered you not only insight, but also permission. Permission to rest, to set kinder boundaries, to listen to your body, and to design a life and work rhythm that feels sustainable for who you are. As we close our practice for today, I want to thank you for sharing this time. If this episode resonated with you, the most meaningful way to support the podcast is to share it. Share it with a colleague or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. It helps our community to reach other people who need it. Until next time, keep your heart open, keep your mind clear and steady. Go be your amazing self as you awaken yourself and others. See you next time. Just a gentle reminder that our conversation today is for inspiration and education only. It is not a substitute for therapy or clinical supervision, and our time together doesn't constitute a therapeutic relationship.